Hey y'all, welcome back to Andy's Little Homestead. Today we're going to do a bunch of stuff to this beautiful 45-year-old plow truck named Juanita to make sure she's ready to push mountains of snow this winter. We're going to install a second battery to help handle the additional electrical load of the plow. We're going to install a transmission temperature gauge so that we don't convert it to an all-neutral transmission like I did that two times. We're going to do a little maintenance on the plow unit itself. Make sure she stays in good shape even when it's cold enough to freeze a killer whale off of a seal. We're going to ignore the fact that I forgot my hat today. So let's get started. Now putting a second battery in is super easy. Even an idiot like me who has a real bad habit of blowing up trucks can do it. This one's already got the battery tray in place, so we went and bought a battery. Now when you buy a battery, there's all kinds of numbers on it. Those are important when sizing it for, you know, a starter or whatever, but they really don't matter that much for this application. The 78 right there though, that's the group size of the battery. So if you find you another 78, it's probably the same size. Or you could take a tape measure into the store. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. It fits perfect. Quick side note, I'm not sponsored by any of the products I'm about to mention. They're the ones that I would purchase with my own money because I did. They're not a super well-known brand, but I am a fan of the Deca batteries. They're made by East Penn Battery, which to my knowledge is the last car battery manufacturer in the United States. They've held up real well for me. It was about $50 cheaper than the ones from the parts store. You know what? Hang on, let me back up. Why do we need a second battery? Because when I'm running this truck with the headlights on and the heater on full blast and running the plow up and down and going back and forth, it's gonna suck down juice like a toddler at vacation Bible school. Here's my example. So right now at high idle, we got a little over 13 volts going in. That's what the alternator is able to put back into the battery. When I turn the lights on, she drops. When I put the heater blower on full blast, and when I run the plow up and down, that motor is gonna burn it up quick. A higher amperage alternator would help make that juice up quicker, but since I'm using all that energy intermittently, having the reserve capacity of the second battery I think is going to be our best bet. Plus I could afford either the battery or the high amp alternator. I chose the battery. That's where we're at. Now we're going to have to connect these two batteries together, and to do that we are going to be putting them in parallel. Long story short, black to black, red to red. That's going to keep the whole system at 12 volts, but it's going to double the amperage or something like that. If I were to put them in series, I'd have the same amperage, but it'd bring it up to 24 volts, just like starter on the sawmill. So here I've got positive to the solenoid, negative to the positive, negative back to there. That's what series looks like. Anyway, they didn't have a cable that was the right length that I needed to jump between the two, so we're gonna make our own. I got 6 feet of red, I got 6 feet of black, I got the terminals to put them together. So for this, we are using 2 gauge wire. Standard battery cables are usually in the 4 to 2 gauge range. For some reason, a lower number means bigger wire. And bigger wire can handle more juice over longer distances. I'm not going into the theory of it because I don't know it. 2 gauge is the big stuff, unless you're going into battery cables for like big old diesel engines. I think 2 gauge will work. We trimmed it back. We did the short one for the battery terminal side because it doesn't need that much wire, and the longer one for the lug side. So for the lug side of this, we use a super high-tech method of squeeze the hell out of it with some channel locks until you can't pull it off. I'm sure there's an actual specialty tool for this kind of thing. I don't have that tool. On the terminal side, well, they just bolt right on there. Just like that. So we get the 2 batteries hooked up, again, positive, positive, negative, negative, and go from there. And there we go. We got everything zip tied in place, up out of the way so it's not gonna rub on anything. Now we got double the juice to work with. Last thing I'm gonna do with the batteries is just go ahead and put these hold down bolts onto it so that I don't, you know, shake it out of there. All right, so now we're on to our transmission temperature gauge. This little guy right here. Now I don't know for certain, but it looks like it'll fit pretty well in there, and that's the indicator for the parking brake, which we consequently don't have hooked up. So I guess it's time to pull the dash apart and see if we can fit it in there. If you're looking to do something illegal, now's a good time to roll the odometer back. Good old-fashioned vehicle fraud, just like Mom used to make. Well, pee my pants and call me Miles Davis, because we got a little hole right there. And that's pretty cool. All right, so she does fit in there, but here's the problem. She wants to be angled off that way, and it looks like it's kind of slotted to be like that, so We'll modify something to make that work. All right, I think I found a solution. It's not an elegant solution. It's not what I would call the right solution, but it is a solution. So we'll see what happens. It smells like burnt plastic in here. I feel like this is starting to get out of hand. All right, so after messing around with it and just hacking away at little bits of the inside there, trying to figure out how it would fit, I came to the conclusion that I was on the wrong track, so I did the honorable thing and gave up and put it back together. But I do have a half-assed plan to get it to work. Also, we need to go ahead and install the sending unit. But I need to get a T to fit this in. We'll get back on it tomorrow. All right, so we tried the safe, careful, reasonable way of doing this, and now we're gonna take a hole saw to the dash. I think that'll work, which is good because I probably only had one shot to get that right. So now we're gonna get this thing wired up. It is super simple. S is for sensor, goes to the sensor. I is for ignition, goes to anything hot when the ignition is on. And GND is for ground, which just means literally any metal that is somehow connected back to the battery, which is all of it. So it looks like our easiest hot wire to access is gonna be the one going to the aftermarket cigarette lighter there. That's gonna be our power supply. Check. Next, we're going to be putting on our ground wire. So this little screw right here is probably made out of metal. I think we can hook a ground to it. So now from here we can turn the ignition, and then if the needle kind of jumps a little bit, that means we got a good connection probably. So it seems we're on the right track. Now for the sensor. So this right here is our sensor. We need this end of it to contact the transmission fluid at some point. And there's a few options you can do. The best option is to go directly into the bottom of the pan, weld a bung on there, and tap it so you're getting a constant reading from the pan itself. That's a lot of work. We're not doing it. You can tap into the transmission cooler line, the one that's going to the cooler. That's a little bit inaccessible, and whoever put the cooler on this one, it's kind of weird that the threads and fittings that they use, it just doesn't make any sense. Last option is to go to one of the pressure ports, but we need to make sure that we're going to the one that feeds all of them. So in this case, it's the rear pressure port. You can look this stuff up on the interwebs. It's not that hard. And this one right here is 1/8 inch pipe thread, and they've got adapters to go to 1/4 and some other sizes that came with the kit. So one of them will probably fit. Grab our trusty LAN cardboard. So like I said, we got 3 pressure ports. That's your first and second. That's for something or other, I can't remember. And then right there, that's your main pressure port. Now you're not gonna have fluid flowing through it unless you're in gear, but you're not making heat in the transmission unless you're in gear. So I think it's probably good enough. Well, that was the most convenient thing possible. They're both 8-inch. They're both 8-inch 1/8 pipe thread. Definitely want to be kind of easy with this as you tighten it down because it is brass and the threads are very thin. Just nice and snug. Should be good. Now we just got to get a wire to that little nubby right there. So what I did was I started at the other end. I routed it through the dash, out through a hole in the firewall up there, over the brake booster, down under here, over the transmission itself, and right into place. It was kind of a pain, but I got plenty of room to work with, so it's not really a problem. The biggest thing I want to make sure is that I don't have it dangling anywhere, because ice on Michigan roads likes to collect and just yank wires out whenever it has the chance. So we'll get that all hooked up and try it out. So after a couple poles up a couple hills, she's up to temperature. Now I'm a little bit confused because I'm pretty sure it's supposed to read like 100 degrees above ambient air temperature. I don't know if there's a thermostat or anything inside the transmission. Somebody smarter than me can go ahead and educate me. But the point is, gauge is working. A couple final notes. The gauge also comes with a little light to wire up in there, but there's an opening in the back and the dash itself is backlit, so it should end up being illuminated just fine. Though I'm now realizing I never told y'all why I put the transmission temperature gauge in. You see, this transmission is a TH350 or a turbo 350. It's fantastic automatic for the year that it came out. It can definitely take more power than the 180 squirrels that are being put into it right now. But the torque converter on this transmission is what's called a non-lockup converter. So at no point is the engine directly connected to the rest of the transmission. It's a fluid coupling, and whenever there's resistance in a fluid coupling, it makes heat, and heat is what kills automatic transmissions. Now for this, I don't know 100% how accurate it's all going to be, since I put it in a pressure port instead of in the bottom of the pan, but I think it'll be fine regardless. If nothing else, I have a warning before I do something stupid. Pretty good at blowing up trucks, so I'm gonna try and not do that. Anyway, that's why we did it. We'll get to the plow stuff another day. I might make a separate video about it, or I might just do it. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed and I hope you learned something. I love you and God bless. I know it's not perfect, but I mean, that's a halfway clean install. Taking this bad boy to SEMA next year.